Well, you're so obedient. You didn't even have to say anything. Good afternoon. My name is Jared Cohen. I'm the president of Carnegie Mellon University, and it's my great pleasure to welcome you to this historic day in the life of Carnegie Mellon University. I want to thank the members of the string quartet who entertained you before we chased them off the stage, I guess. They're all members of the student body of the School of Music. We're very proud of them. We're very glad that you could be with us today. You are people, most of you who are here, with a particular interest in public policy, people who care about the world's problems, from sustainability to health care, from poverty to social justice. And you care about them at every level, geographic and government, local, national, and global. 40 years ago, in 1968, it was these same concerns that inspired Carnegie Mellon to form a new school. At that time, in the 60s, American cities were in turmoil. They were struggling with declining tax bases, urban sprawl, suburban sprawl of a serious sort really got started. Cities were coping with massive new public housing projects, some of them very ill-conceived, and highway projects that reshaped entire neighborhoods, and not for the better. Government often seemed out of touch with the needs of city residents, and racial tensions erupted into deadly riots that devastated many cities from coast to coast in this country. There was a growing awareness of the effects of pollution and especially poor air quality in our cities, and increasing alarm about poverty and inequality. 2 decades before that time, in the late 1940s, Carnegie Mellon created the Graduate School of Industrial Administration, or GSIA, as it was known then, now known, of course, as the Tepper School of Business. That school transformed management education by putting business practice on a more scientific and interdisciplinary footing and developing and applying new analytical tools of economics and operations research for the problems of companies and markets. They essentially created the modern business degree. Some young GSIA faculty members in the 60s, led by William Cooper and Otto Davis, better known as Bill and Toby, asked, what if we could take these new tools of the business world, new tools developed at Carnegie Mellon, and apply them to the pressing issues in the public sphere? What if we created a new school that would teach students new systematic ways to address social and government problems and needs, just as they had addressed industrial organization and marketing in the private sector? It was the right idea at the right time, and so with very substantial startup support from Richard King Mellon and his wife Constance, and under the inspired deanship of Bill Cooper, the School of Urban and Public Affairs, or SUPA, opened its doors in 1968. At around the same time, a similar commitment to advancing the public good was on the mind of a young H. John Heinz III. After working for his family's company during the 60s, he had actually joined the faculty at Carnegie Mellon in 1970. But John Heinz's heart was truly in public service, and in 1971 he won a special election to become a member of the U.S. House of Representatives. After 2 more terms in the House, he became Pennsylvania's United States Senator in 1976. During his years of service in Congress, John Heinz championed new initiatives on aging, international trade and finance, health care, and as we all know, especially close to his heart, the environment. He was truly a beloved figure in the state and in this nation, widely recognized as one of the most effective politicians of his generation. He was especially revered for his willingness to work across the aisle on projects of importance to the country. He believed strongly in bipartisan cooperation, and he lived his professional life just that way. Senator Heinz died in a tragic airplane accident on April 4th, 1991. In honor of his life, his immense contributions as a senator, and in recognition of his inspiring influence on so many, Carnegie Mellon renamed its School of Urban and Public Affairs the H. John Heinz III School of Public Policy and Management. Over the years, a variety of graduate programs have been added to the Heinz School's successful master's programs in public policy and management, programs in healthcare, in the arts, in entertainment, and in information systems. And in the process, the Heinz School has become a global school as well. What unites all of these programs, wherever they're taught, is a practical problem-solving ethos and the application of analytical tools, technologies, and creativity in the search for innovative solutions in these various areas. I think it's fair to say information systems degree programs in particular have grown quickly, providing training that has relevance in both the public and private sectors. In recent years, the leadership of the Heinz School has recognized two significant and interconnected trends. First, the growing power of information technology as problem solving is providing the basis for problem solving tools in all spheres of life and work, with an enormous untapped potential, especially for applications in the public sphere. Second, the growing integration of the world's economy with ramifications for every industry and economic endeavor. These trends, as we know, are playing out in the careers of recent Heinz School graduates and will in the lives of new graduates soon. They've also been providing key research directions for our faculty, and they're increasingly important to the economic competitiveness of this region and of our nation. It's not too much to say that the Heinz School finds itself at the sweet spot, if you will, at the intersection of the trends I mentioned. And to the Heinz School people, that means an opportunity to reshape itself boldly for today, and an opportunity to renew and expand its dedication to its founding vision. It was indeed this sense of opportunity that compelled the Heinz Endowments to provide generous support, for which we are all very grateful, and which helped to bring us to this great event today. We're honored to have with us today Teresa Heinz, Chairman of the Heinz Endowments. Teresa, we thank you for your remarkable leadership of this foundation, for your wonderful support of this university, and the guidance we've received from you over the years. Andre Heinz was on his way here, and may still be on his way here. In advance of his arrival, I want to acknowledge him and thank him. He's not only John Heinz and Teresa Heinz's son, he's a member of the board of the Heinz Endowments, as is Jim Walton, our trustee, who is also with us today. I want to also recognize Bobby Vaught, the president of the Heinz Endowments, and Jeff Lewis, president of the Heinz Family Foundation. We're very pleased you could be with us today for this very important occasion. To continue this historic event, it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you the Chairman of the Board of Trustees of Carnegie Mellon, David Shapira.
Thank you very much, Jerry. And on behalf of the Board of Trustees of Carnegie Mellon, Teresa, I would like to, on behalf of all of us, thank you for everything that you do for the university, you and the Heinz Family Endowments. But in addition to that, for everything that you do for society in general, you are truly a remarkable person, and we all are blessed to know you. So thank you. As chairman of the board of Carnegie Mellon, I would like to welcome you all to this historic occasion. My role today is to sort of do the official things that have to be done, and although I hate reading from papers, I've been instructed that I must read from this paper. So I apologize in advance. What I would like to do is read to you a resolution that was passed this morning by the board in today's board meeting. Whereas in 1968, the School of Urban and Public Affairs was established for the study of public policy and management. And whereas in 1992, the school was named the H. John Heinz III School of Public Policy and Management in honor of the late Senator Heinz. And whereas in recognition of the growing importance of information systems degree programs to the college and its future, the School of Information Systems Management has been established along with the H. John Heinz III School of Public Policy and Management, forming the H. John Heinz III College. And whereas in October 2007, the Heinz Endowments announced its approval and support for this vision for the Heinz College, now therefore be it resolved that in appreciation of the generosity of Teresa Heinz and the Heinz Endowments for their long-standing support, and appreciation for their encouragement and endorsement in establishing the Heinz College, we hereby celebrate the establishment of the H. John Heinz III College and thank the Heinz family for their committed service and dedication to the university. And Teresa, thank you again. Carnegie Mellon makes structural changes like this very infrequently, but we always make them purposefully. The trustees are convinced that with the strength of the public policy program, coupled with an expanded role for the information systems program, that we have a winning combination, greatly expanding the Heinz College ability to respond to the needs of the community. We also believe that it will attract new students and support exciting scholarship and research relevant to a broad range of problems in the public and private sectors, both in the U.S. and around the world. The entire university will benefit from this change, which will open up new problems for collaboration and cooperation, and in such areas as energy, environmental policy, economic development, and governance. Now I'm leaving the script for a second. This is actually what Carnegie Mellon is best at. It's right in our best tradition, and I think this is a really great thing. It's now my pleasure to introduce the acting dean of the new Heinz College, Ramayya Krishnan, who also holds the William W. and Ruth F. Cooper Professorship of Management Science and Information Systems. Dean Krishnan is well suited to reflect on this new structure for the school, not only as a longtime faculty member, but also because his own research interest is in how Internet and other information technologies are spurring innovative solutions to a wide range of problems in both the public and private sector. So with no further ado, Dean Krishnan.
Thank you, David. I don't have David's excuse, but I'll stick to my notes as well. Good afternoon and welcome. We have many students and faculty who are not here watching this, so welcome to those of you who are not here in Washington, D.C., in Los Angeles, and for those of you who are in Adelaide, good day. All right. Good eye might. All right, there you go. So I'd like to begin by saying on behalf of the faculty, the staff, and the students of the H. John Heinz III College, we do greatly appreciate President Cohen and the Board of Trustees for supporting and encouraging this transformation of the Heinz School to the Heinz College, which will consist of two schools, a School of Information Systems and Management and a School of Public Policy and Management. We are deeply grateful to Teresa Heinz and the Heinz Endowments for long-term support to the school's vision and for believing in this transformation and actually making it possible. It's important that I acknowledge my predecessors as deans, Al Bloomstein, who's here, Mark Camlett, and most important of them all, Mark Wessel. We would not be here if not for them. They had the vision and foresaw the societal scale deployment and adoption of information technology and the profound implications that this has had for our political, cultural, and economic systems. We live in a world today where there are more than 110 million users of Facebook, upwards of 200 million cell phone users in the US, and over 2.5 billion cell phone users worldwide, where candidates for public office bypass traditional news media to send text messages about their campaigns to voters with important campaign news, and where literally hundreds of millions of people have access to information networks for conducting commerce, for collaborating, and for communicating. So what are the implications of these changes, these profound changes for individuals, for firms, for markets, for society? It's in studying these implications that I think has catalyzed our universities establishing this John Heinz III College. So what I would like to reflect on for a few minutes is, what does it mean to have a School of Information Systems and Management and a School of Public Policy and Management under one roof? So first and foremost, I think looking at this internally, there's a tremendous amount of diversity that lives and exists within the Heinz College in terms of culture, in terms of interests, in terms of geography. And we would like to find ways to truly leverage the power and promise of this diversity that exists within the Heinz College. Second, I think this new structure will permit us to innovate at the intersection of information technology and public policy, while enabling each school to really build on and deliver on its distinctive strengths. So for instance, the Public Policy and Management School has had distinctive capabilities and strength in important policy domains: social policy, health, and environmental policy. And in the case of the Information Systems and Management School, an expertise in understanding the economic and technological drivers of digital transformation in key sectors such as health, finance, and entertainment. So how might we innovate at the intersection of public policy and information technology? I'll offer two examples. The first example is healthcare. It represents 16% of the US economy. There are 46 million uninsured people in the US, and it's widely recognized that information technology is a key part of the solution to reduce costs and improve quality and avoid potentially deadly errors. The Department of Health and Human Services even has a coordinating role to help create interoperable information technology to enable the implementation of important policy goals in this area of healthcare and IT. Another example is a revolution in the way digital content has gone, how content has gone digital, be it video or audio. I mean, if you look at iPods, we have more than 150 million iPods in use today. And as you think about music and video and how this content has gone digital, it's really important to recognize the role of intellectual property rights in this domain. How does one price in the face of piracy? How does one think about broadband media policy in a world where all content is digital, easily shareable, and how should value be added both to firms, to markets, and to society? I've given you but two examples of the potential that lies in co-locating students and scholars with interests in information technology and public policy. To fully realize our potential, we have embarked on an initiative which I call C Squared, Collaborate and Connect. I should warn you, I use C Squared both as a noun and as a verb, as I will in just a moment. So we plan to C-square our programs within the school, so to collaborate and connect and truly leverage the diversity that lies within the college. We will C-square our campuses. I mentioned we have presence in addition to Pittsburgh in DC and LA and in Adelaide. And we want to really be able to connect these different campuses. We will C-square with our colleagues within the university. It's one of the great strengths of CMUs in being able to do really cool interdisciplinary work across departmental boundaries. And with our organizational partners, our alumni and stakeholders, we have put in place labs, and an example is iLab and the Institute of Social Innovation, with the idea of trying to promote entrepreneurship and innovation in this important intersection between information technology and public policy. So today we are celebrating something important not only for the university but for society as a whole. And in the words of our founder, in whose name my chair is named after as well, Bill Cooper, who said, "We are here to create men and women of intelligent action who can change the world." This has been the historic mission of the Heinz School and now the Heinz College, and we will pursue this quest with renewed energy. So thank you, and it's now my pleasure to introduce a distinguished 1978 graduate of the Heinz Policy Program, Dr. Beverly Wheeler. Dr. Wheeler is the Executive Director of the District of Columbia State Board of Education and President-elect of the Carnegie Mellon Alumni Association. Beverly.
My notes are short. They told me I didn't have long to speak, that I only had, because they know I am so in love with Carnegie Mellon University that I could speak for hours, but I will not. Today is a wonderful day. Today is a day of celebration, and I am so proud and I'm so humbled to be here. I arrived on Carnegie Mellon's campus 3 months after the first graduate of the master's program from SUPA in 1972, and I never left. Rick Stafford is one who was here that day, and I'm sorry that he's not here today. But today there are some faculty members who were my faculty members there, who absolutely led me through the process to love Carnegie Mellon and to love education. But there were 2 men in my life who had a profound effect on my profession and on my desire for education. They taught me that education was to be pursued, that you should go to far ends of the earth to find the education and do whatever you could to get it. And if in fact you were blessed to be educated, it was incumbent upon you to use it for the public good, to make sure that if you got the education, that you shared it and that you did something for humanity. Those people were my father, who had to, in 1920, with a learning disability, actually do a sit-in at his Harrisburg High School to get an education, and Toby Davis, who was the dean here. I actually remember when Toby invited me to be a part of this great experiment. It was over lunch, and it was the spring of my sophomore year, when he asked me to be a 3-2 student, to actually leave the joy of being an undergraduate student, but in my junior year to start graduate studies. I said, yes, of course. Because Carnegie Mellon had taught me a lot of individual skills, but I wasn't sure how I should package those skills. And so the School of Urban and Public Affairs gave me an opportunity to do that. Another thing that Toby taught me was about the iterative process. And what we see here with SUPA and the Heinz School and the Heinz College is an iterative process where we learn how to do everything different and better and more wonderful. I am so excited about today because we have an opportunity to really look at technology, information systems, and use them with policy, and to really think about policy as we need to think about it today. Now, there are those of us who've been around for a while. Actually, I'm celebrating my 30th Heinz reunion at this homecoming. Those of us who thought we were the keepers of the vision, who wanted to make sure, are we moving too fast? Are we making sure we have policy? Are we, sending people into the public sector? I say resoundingly yes. I say we need to be excited again today. I'm also excited just about the Heinz College because it's, as Dr. Cohen said, it's named after a man who embodied public service, a man who embraced using resources to provide good public policy. And it emboldens us now to go forward, to do more when we need good public servants doing good public policy more than ever. So I'm proud to be here, and I would like to believe that Toby would be proud of us as well. Thank you. I'd now like to introduce a current student at the Heinz College, Conrhonda Baker. She is a master's student in arts management.
Thank you, Beverly. Again, I just want to echo that on behalf of all the students, we are incredibly excited and grateful for the opportunity to step into the Heinz College. In preparing my remarks for this celebration today, I asked a couple of my peers, what makes the Heinz College so special? Seems like a simple question. The answers ranged from the faculty to the resources like the Career Center to opportunities to interact with our peers from different programs socially, because sometimes the best ideas happen over a cup of coffee. But there was one answer that permeated through all of the answers and one answer that everyone agreed upon. And that was that the Heinz College students have ambitions, and that the Heinz College students have a vision for how to make their industries better. And they have a vision for how to make their lives better. And the Heinz College as an entity uses those resources of the faculty, of the services and resources like the Career Center, and even those formalized social activities to help us embrace the vision that the Heinz School was, that SUPA was, and that is now the Heinz College. So it is my pleasure to ask Ms. Heinz to join me at the podium. Now, we students hear that you have a young granddaughter, and as you know, CMU likes to recruit students early, especially those with talent. So it gives me great pleasure to present you with the only children's Heinz College logo t-shirt. And in fact, we have t-shirts for the entire Heinz family.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Softball team.
I know, it is like a softball team.
Thank you. Thank you.
And last but not least, it gives me much joy to present you with this card that is signed by Heinz students that I think embodies truly what we feel in just having the opportunity to be in the Heinz College and to receive our degrees from such a wonderful institution.
Thank you.
Yes, certainly. Come on, come. This way.
This way.
Thank you, Conrhonda. That was terrific, and thanks to all the Heinz College students. In honor of this occasion, we are honored to have as our guest speaker our friend and advisor, Paul O'Neill. Paul has served on the Heinz Dean's Advisory Council for several years, a council that, in fact, has been invaluable in helping to support the vision for this new college structure that we are announcing and celebrating today. Paul understands well the distinctive character of the Heinz College, as he should, because throughout his long and distinguished career, he has been a voice for, a proponent of, the value of data-driven decision-making wherever he's worked, in both the public and private sectors. He's had, as well, a very deep experience in the transitions and challenges of regions like ours, and especially our region, which he loves well as the nation. Please join me in welcoming a longtime friend and valued advisor back to Carnegie Mellon, the former U.S. Treasury Secretary and the retired Chairman and CEO of Alcoa, the Honorable Paul O'Neill.
I don't like giving prepared speeches, so I hope you won't mind if I just remind myself with my notes of things I thought were worthwhile saying today. I've lived most of my life at the intersection of public and private policy and information technology. And so to me, this transition seems like a natural evolution and an important evolution at the same time, because I think if you join me in looking at where we are in the world today, we have an ever greater need for people who understand the details and nuances of important public and private policy decisions and how to engage information technology and systems analysis in giving us the prospect of better answers and a better world for all of humanity. You know, for me, a lot of this is, frankly, very personal. I was thinking when we were standing down below about Senator Heinz and how I had known Senator Heinz. So this is of the neighborhood, if you will. You know, I have this memory after I'd been here maybe for a couple of years, standing out on Walnut Street by Schiller's drugstore. For those of you who are local, you'll appreciate this. And Senator Heinz was there, you know, dressed casually, and we had a conversation on the corner. And I noticed when we were done talking, he got in his Jaguar, I think. No. Teresa's saying no. I swear this is my memory that he was standing by this car. Maybe it wasn't his, and I was thinking to myself, this old saw about Jaguar. If you own one, you actually have to have two because one's in the garage all the time. So he's not guilty of owning it, just standing by it, I suppose. But, you know, we had engagements in public policy issues. I was in the federal government from 1961 until 76 before I went back for a second round that my wife thought was ill-advised, and she was right. But I came to know him after he was elected to the House and then to the Senate, and to engage him on public policy issues. But, you know, my fond memories are of running into him in the neighborhood and him being you know, clearly a person of superior intelligence and intellect, but of the neighborhood at the same time. I never had a sense that he thought he was better than anyone. He just wanted to make the world a better place. And so I think very much he would have appreciated the transition that's going on today. He would have found much in it that he saw earlier than most people did. In 1995, Teresa created in his honor the Heinz Center on Science, Economics, and the Environment. And that's how Jerry and I really got to know each other, engaging with the founding board of directors there, and seeing the wisdom of his understanding of the linkage of important public policy issues. And I would say, even though the Heinz Center doesn't have in its name energy, for sure the senator knew that energy and environment are the same subject. They're not two different subjects. He knew that way before his time, and he tried to bring his colleagues along to understand we shouldn't have divisions over whether economics was more important than the environment or the environment more important than economics, and understanding that science needed to be our quest for understanding how to tame and direct these important elements of our society way before his time. So I think he would have much appreciated this transition that's now happening here at Carnegie Mellon. And I have to tell you for sure, I appreciate it. I thought I would tell you more about living my own life at the intersection of these important subjects. I see them as truly the same subject. So I got recruited to go into the government in 1961. Actually, I served my first day in government on July the 3rd of 1961. I had a degree in economics, and I spent a year at Claremont Graduate School studying mathematical economics and operations research. And I accepted an internship at the Veterans Administration because they offered, as part of that internship, the first 18 months learning about systems analysis and how to program computers. You know, I didn't know. Now, you all know that you need to prepare people with that. I didn't know I needed that, but I was dumb lucky enough to fall into marrying disciplines that were reinforcing and helpful to each other. And so when I was recruited into the VA, at that time I think there were 172,000 patients in the Veterans Administration hospital system. And here was a subject that was made to order. How do you optimize the right diet for 170,000 people every day and do it in such a way that it satisfies their desire for the frequency of what they get and their preference for different kind of foods, and do it all with the lowest possible cost, and use the consequence of the complex, biggest ever of its kind linear programming model to solve the diet problem. You know, it was a wonderful example of bringing economics and operations research and computers to the table at the same time. Some of you are not old enough to remember this, so I have to tell you. In 1963, let's say, when we first began running this optimization, it took 2 hours and 45 minutes on an IBM 7094 to run one iteration of this gigantic model. Today, you could do it on your laptop probably in about 45 seconds. But in those days, it was an unbelievably large problem that we were trying to work on. So, you know, I moved from there. I was recruited after I had another year of school in Indiana, got another degree. I was recruited into what was then the Bureau of the Budget. And here again, I found an intersection of information technology and important public policy problems. Because my first assignment was figure out how we can think in an integrated way about the federal role in health and medical care. So I thought a good place to begin would be to know what is it we actually do in the federal government. So I used the information technology, it was pretty primitive in those days, to discover for the first time, no one had known, there were 26 different departments and agencies of the federal government that were doing something about health and medical care. They didn't really have much awareness of their individual intersections. They were off doing their own things because they were independently authorized by committees of the House and the Senate. And they hardly ever talked to each other. So there was no engagement of important questions like this. If you have a limited amount of resources and you have a problem of people with kidney failure, should we invest our money in perfecting renal dialysis, that is cleaning up people's bloodstreams, or should we invest our research money in figuring out how to overcome tissue rejection so that when we do transplants, the kidneys don't get rejected. You know, no one had ever had the ability to think about those problems because no one had ever imagined that there were important intellectual intersections that needed to be mined. And I'm not here to tell you there are easy answers to those kind of questions, only that information technology for the first time began to make it possible to think about worthy questions and to work on them in a concerted, careful, building way. And so, you know, I was not too surprised. Some of you will begin to remember this because you were old enough in 1969. I had telephone calls from Air Force One. This was like in June of 1969. And what President Nixon wanted to know, if we changed the terms of what we were considering a negative income tax, no one could say those words out loud in those times. That was ideologically unacceptable. But what we were working on was a way to transform income assistance for low-income people in the United States. And so Nixon and Ehrlichman and Haldeman, who were flying back from Romania, wanted to know, run the computer model at CDC and help us understand how many people are affected by changing the income support levels from $1,600 a family to $2,400 a family. And here again, until about that time, it would have been impossible to have anything more than a guess. We were able to use the demographic facts from the U.S. Census data and understanding state and local distributions of different income levels to actually have a very good idea about how much money it would cost to provide different levels of income support. Now, you know, I give you a couple of those kind of examples because for me, these things absolutely have to be together. I would say information technology alone is interesting, but it doesn't go much of any place. In fact, I have to tell you, without human animation and leadership, even good analysis doesn't do very much good. And so I've been, in the time I've been serving on the advisory group, pounding away on the subject of let's call ourselves the leadership school, not the management school. It's not that I don't appreciate management, but I'm here to tell you it's leadership that really makes an essential difference in how we have the potential to move our country forward. It's about leadership ideas. And I'm going to give you a couple of examples of that. You know, I'm thinking after I served until January of 1977 in the government and went to the private sector, again, I want to make a point that policy making, public and private sectors are a lot more alike than they're different. So that I found information technology was essential to beginning to understand the forest products industry when I went to work at International Paper and to creating a competitive cost curve so that one could see where you were in the context of a world competitive activity and to see early on how the world was becoming ever more interconnected, that while we still had a conceit in this country in the 60s and the 70s that we were kind of alone and an island protected by oceans on both sides from the rest of the world, it wasn't true even then, and been clear to me for a long time that we were creating this growing interdependence, which we've now seen with a vengeance in the last couple of months. And then when I was fortunate enough to be recruited to come to Alcoa and be the CEO, you know, one of the proudest things I have ever done was to use information technology to provide a basis for an enterprise of 350 locations in 43 countries to be the safest enterprise in the world. Not by cheerleading, but by using information technology to put into cyberspace for 143,000 people to see, for 140,000 people every day to see incidents that had occurred someplace in the world that they could learn from almost instantaneously, so that we could use incidents, things gone wrong, to learn and educate people and to give people a basis so they could take their own action to create a phenomenon that unfortunately not a lot of other places have yet figured out how to do. Dave and I were having a little conversation before we came out. His lost workday rate is now down 75% from where it was when they started their own quest toward an incident-free workplace. And I'm here to tell you, it's the leadership that articulates the goal that's a crucial element. And then if you can marshal information technology and move forward on public policy, it is really, truly unbelievable what can be accomplished in lots of different ways in lots of different places, and there's still so much more to be done. So I'm going to take you back into the government with me now in 2001. And after 9/11, after 9/11, I was in Tokyo and had just gotten there about 15 minutes before the first plane hit the towers. And so they sent a plane from Okinawa to pick me up to bring me back, and we flew overnight. And when I got back on the ground, my people were telling me, you've got to convince the president that we can't reopen the market tomorrow. This is now a Wednesday night, I think Wednesday night. And the reason we can't reopen the market is because the information center, the computer center that drives the stock exchanges is under 30 feet of water. I thought that was a pretty convincing argument. And so I did convince the president we can't do it. We're going to do everything we can to restart on Monday morning. And I have to tell you, there's a famous picture of some of us, Hillary Clinton and me and Dick Grasso and the governor standing there at the podium. I had my hands behind me with my fingers crossed that it was going to work when we hit the button to start the markets, which we did. But it was the marvel of information technology that let us demonstrate that while our buildings have been knocked down, our spirit wasn't stopped. It was really an important moment. And then we set out to figure out where the money flows are in the world that are supporting these evil things. And in the time that I was there until the end of November in 2002, we were able to confiscate $400 million worth of money that we were only able to identify and secure because of information technology. Without it, we had no hope. There was no way we could have interdicted the money that terrorists were using to attack civilization. So it's, maybe you don't find it a happy example, but it is really an important example of the combination of public policy and the needs of public policy and bringing with it information technology to change the world in a very positive way. Then I want to make a case that information technology and public policy issues can get you in trouble, so that in 2002, I kept saying, I don't think we should have another tax cut because I think there's a threat we could have another attack. There's a loud crying need to deal with the issues of unfunded liabilities for Social Security and Medicare, which now total $53 trillion, if you don't know. And we need to do something about the 10,000-page tax code that proves we're not an intelligent people. And by the way, if you run the computer models and you believe the computer models about the incremental difference that another tax cut will make in the fourth quarter of 2004, which I know you're interested in because that happens to be another election season, this incremental tax cut will produce half of 1% difference in GDP growth rates, and it's not worth it. Now, I tell you all that because this is a case of public policy and good modeling and analysis leading you to a conclusion that gets you fired. Sometimes it's not such a bad idea to get fired. You know, it's not over. And so I have a message for the students today. I'm sure you are imagining how you're going to bring together this intersection in a way that makes a lot of difference to you. If you don't have an agenda of your own, I have one for you that I tried my best to get Jim Wolfenson to adopt. He was the head of the World Bank when I was the Secretary of the Treasury. And I've long been interested in global economic development, believing that there is no reason why people everywhere in the world not only can aspire to what we're lucky enough to have, but actually enjoy what we have. And so when Jim went to the World Bank, one of the things that he did, to his great credit, was oversee a process of creating the so-called Millennium Challenge goals for 2015. And one of those goals was that by 2015, at least half of those people who had no clean water in 2000 would have it in 2015. And so I said to Jim, you know, Jim, what about the other half? Which he didn't appreciate a lot, but I had even a sterner idea for him, which he didn't like at all, which is this. I believed we should put laptop computers in every village in Africa and in other places around the world, but particularly in Africa. They ought to be uplinked in cyberspace, and every day they should answer the question, how many people in your place have clean water today that didn't have it yesterday? Not in 2015. And frankly, believing that if you don't measure things and if you don't have near-term goals, it's pretty easy to have long-term goals that you regret you didn't achieve when you get there because you didn't do anything in between. And so if you want to do something really important, think about leadership goals that most people would say are impossible. Make sure they're highly desirable for human beings every place in the world. And then push on with not only the ultimate goal, but what you expect the world to accomplish every day. And by the time you get to that day in 2015 that you set your sights on, you'll be really proud that you made a difference and caused change that makes civilization worthy of the name. Thank you all very much. Thank you. It's now my pleasure to introduce Teresa to you, who I don't really need to do that, do I? This is such a wonderful person. She's intelligent. She's determined. She's caring. She cares a lot about this community. You know, I'm sure that many of you would have wondered, well, you know, why didn't she just go off and stay in Washington and never show up around here and not care much about this place? You know, she's my idea of, actually of the Pittsburgh community. My wife and I have now been here 21 years. We came in 1987. We choose to be here. You know, we could live wherever. We choose to be here because this is a really unusual community. I'm not sure Pittsburghers understand as well as they ought to, what a wonderful place this is, because it's a place where regular, everyday human beings make important things happen. People are engaged. They make a contribution. It's not about taking, it's about giving. And it makes me really proud to be part of this community and to call my friend Teresa.
Well, I also have notes, but I've been inspired and challenged as I was listening to Paul and to Beverly and to you. You nearly made me cry. And it did, because as Paul says, we all who love Pittsburgh have a place in our hearts that we may not even be aware of that responds. And when you've lived in Washington as long as I have, and I didn't choose to stay in Washington, I made a decision that made me stay in Washington some. But I'm here. I run away here as much as I can. But when you do, you realize how very special Pittsburgh is. I always thought of it even in the 60s when I was helping with a little school, Shady Lane School, trying to get for a little early childhood model scholarship monies for 3- and 4-year-olds. And I remember going to Guilfoyle to ask for $2,500. I had never done that before. And very nice man, I think the president or the chairman, talked to me. He said, well, we know we only do higher education. I said, I know that. But, you know, we have to get from here to there. And we're really trying to do something very special about affecting public schools in Pittsburgh. And we have to understand what we're doing and that it works. And then if it does, we'll get there. And he gave us our first $2,500 for pre-K scholarship monies in Pittsburgh. That's huge. In 1968 or 9, that was huge. So the point is, in this city, you can feel emboldened as you are challenged and hopeful that someone will hear you. And that's the spirit with which my husband did everything, and certainly the spirit that I carry. And I would just like to talk to him a little bit, to you students particularly, about what the name of the school means in terms of the man that I knew and married, the father of my kids, the congressman, the senator, most importantly, a passionate and joyful human being. And I don't know if it was Paul, mentioned the word not passion, but commitment, something of that sort. And passion is what he had. And if he was intolerant in any way, was for stuffed up people who never had a question and never wanted to listen to anyone's question. He did not like that. So to him, the status quo was never good enough. There was always a better way of doing things, always a better way of pushing the envelope and challenging status quo, always a solution, a problem looking for a solution, an opportunity. He looked at problems as opportunities. And I have to tell you, the books on his bedside were Scientific American and chess and art. So he was a man of and Ski magazine. So he really did. And this, I'm not saying these just to be talky, because there is a link. He was, as equipment got better in skiing, so he was already a very good nationally ranked skier. No, he was better now because he learned to do his turn better. Tennis, he'd have to beat anybody and he'd figure out something how to do it better, always getting better. Well, you are living in a time, which Paul made a reference to now, of this great crossroads of transfer, of technology, not transfer. That's what he did. In those days it was COCOM and Eastern Europe and communists and that kind of problem. Today, technology transfer is something else. But you are living in time of and opportunities that will allow you to bridge not only differences and barriers, but to create such opportunities unheard of, both culturally, governmentally, societally, in NGO, etc. You have that ability, just like he used it in little ways, with his tennis or his ski turns or whatever it is that we had as technology in those days, which wasn't a lot, but we used that. He was a person that I think if you knew him, he was a born teacher in his heart, except to his own kids and me, of course, because he was so demanding. And when you have that morning, noon, and night, it's tough. But there was never a dinner, and we made a point of having as much as possible family dinner time, except maybe twice a week. And my boys, I think, resent it in some ways, but they're grateful for it today. They understand as men what that meant. But he really enjoyed that kind of give and take and curiosity. And you would have had a lot of fun with him, and he would have loved being here and pester you with questions. He cared about old people. He cared about, and his legislation created in the House, actually, with Claude Pepper, famous Claude Pepper was one of the older members of the House and great legislator, and who could never, as a Democrat, bring about the creation of the Committee on Aging. But because this young Republican wanted to co-sponsor it and introduced it with him, it passed. And then he became the chairman of Aging. And particularly of importance, and I know you deal with this, was long-term care. And he really studied that and was concerned then, almost 20 years ago or more. And if you talk to, say, Andy Stern from ACIU, his main concern as a big labor leader of ACIU is long-term care and how we're going to look at that. That's his big thing. And you talk to people in AARP, you talk to insurance companies, you name it. He cared about that from way back. He cared about the environment. Why did he care about the environment? Because he was a fisherman and a hunter. Not a hunter, but shot birds or anything that flew. But he did when he had time. But loved nature, and as most avid lovers of nature, they are great protectors of nature because they want to go back and see that the animal and the fish are still there. And he was also a fantastic shot, as a matter of fact, beat the world champion. He was just a gifted guy, let's face it. Difficult to live with, but a wonderful man. Well, how can you be good when you live with someone like that? I was a better cook. But he did, and so just pushing the envelope and learning all the time was something that he did. So everything that he did really was about life, was about barriers to excellence or barriers to people managing their lives or barriers or stupidity in the part of either policymakers or through ignorance. And so rather than he loved government because he loved people. And he actually said, if you really don't love people, you shouldn't be in government because you'll be miserable and you'll be bad, whatever you are, legislator, governor, etc. And that really what it means is, if you have the passion to come to Heinz School, to solve whatever, or prevent, or create whatever possibilities are there, is because you have a passion for excellence and a passion for good policy and a passion for well-being, whatever it encompasses. And it's that well-being that I think we should put a litmus on anybody running for office. If they badmouth government, you don't run because you want to go there and do a good job, not badmouth it. Turn it around and be smart about it. And that's what he would say. But that's what I believe. And I'm tired of people being in Washington and sticking around and badmouthing it all the time. I'd rather they left, came back, and just turned it around, made it work. In those days, I saw government working in bipartisan fashion. And this is the other point I want to make. We're not going to solve the problems of this world, if we do not know how to talk to one another in government, in society, cross governments, cross countries, transnational, you name it. We don't even have language yet for a lot of our transnational, global agenda and understandings or laws in many respects. I mean, laws that can be implemented. We don't have the history of trust to do it. Only in the old-fashioned League of Nations. In those days they did, now at the UN they don't. I mean, they don't trust. And it's up to you, really, with all that the school can give you, all the inspiration that we, as older people in this community and experienced, can share with you, and all that your great teachers and faculty here can give you. You have an awful lot going for you. And I know you have the passion or you wouldn't be here. And so now I just can look and see if I am supposed to say something. But I wanted to share you with that because I think that was his heart, and that was what this, I think, has meant to a lot of the Pittsburghers who brought change about in the city, not just John. He was a product of it. And as in many respects is Paul a reflection of it, though he didn't grow up here. But I was so proud when Paul decided to leave Washington. It takes guts in that city to say what you believe and what is right in your mind. I think he was right anyway. And I had the great pleasure to work with Paul at the Heinz Center of Environmental Sciences and Economics, and thorny problems, but very exciting opportunities. And my only sadness is I can't be queen for a day or for a year and just make all these things happen quickly. I like that sometimes. And I'd be booted out. But anyway. So already a lot has been said about the new school, the new college. And so I don't need to say that anymore about that. And also about Pittsburgh and what its sense of possibility and light is. It is the Renaissance city, after all. And it's the Renaissance city because R.K. Mellon and Governor Lawrence and others had the forethought, or at least the good reactive instincts, to clean up the city when it needed desperately to be done, or they knew they couldn't get people here. But they did it. And that spirit has stayed there and has broadened. Unfortunately, times have changed, and the kind of infrastructure that Pittsburgh used to have in terms of the old leadership infrastructure doesn't quite exist. So leadership comes from different places now, which is healthier, just more laborious, but it's healthier. And so there's great civic comradeship and trust now in this community. I think that's different from the past. Men, women, minorities, you name it. Whereas before it was all the old dads, or so, whatever you want to call them. Some of them great, some of them all right. And so I'm excited by seeing what's happening at Carnegie Mellon with this. And on behalf of our family, I want to express my congratulations to Jerry Cohen, to you, David, and you on behalf of the board, to Dean Krishnan and the faculty, and to express our great support for what the Heinz College has in its two schools. And I would say to you, students, that every single one of the challenges we face today, just to recap, are only opportunities for brilliant new innovations. I happen to be very interested and work a lot on environmental toxicities, on prevention, on environmental health. And there are some horrific things you see if you look at research. But there are also amazing new ways of measuring how to treat, how to prevent. How do you prevent cancer and not go there in the first place? We know a lot. How to prevent autism. We know. We are doing it here in Pittsburgh right now and treating some of it. It's not well known yet, but we know. This place is a mine of knowledge of that kind. And there are other centers like this in America, but not a lot. Not a lot. And it's so exciting. Every time I came here the other day, and I went to a meeting at the McGowan Center for Regenerative Medicine, with our president, Bobby Vact. And I only had 4 hours. And it was like going to Disneyland, F.A.O. Schwartz, Disney World, and George Lucas taking me by hand. I was so excited about the possibilities in there and what I saw with my own eyes. So I just say, these things are here, remember that. And so we have global poverties to face, generally water-related, refugee status, desertification, hunger, disease. One of the Heinz Award winners that just won an award this week, Joe Teresa, is 35 years old, from UCSF. Brilliant guy. And his whole big thing is to figure out how to detect and do and cure all of the big diseases that kill the world, malaria, AIDS, etc. He was able to develop a slide this little big that in less than 24 hours identifies SARS. And you'll say that any virus that comes down the way within a few years is going to be able to be identified immediately. That's another technology time we're all in. But Pittsburgh, with CMU and Carnegie and Pitt Biotech, is at the crossroads of all of these possibilities in medicine, in materials, in systems, in management, you name it. And then you have the great technical side of the university and also the artistic side of the university. You have, performing arts, fine arts, great English. I mean, you really are a lucky group of people. So just know that the horrible things you see and you read, there's a lot of knowledge already. Just keep asking the questions, why does it happen? Why does this happen? It's not necessary. And that's my driving force, the work that I do. I don't want to give people monies to go to hospital. I want to give somebody monies to make them well so they don't go to hospital, if I can, if I had a choice. And we know enough to know how to do that a lot better than we're doing. And we also know that if we have tremendous problems in our water systems, in our air, with metals and minerals, metals mostly, not minerals, and we have huge incidents of attention deficit and all of the developmental neurological problems, as well as autism and other things. How can we expect kids in school to study? How can we expect the parents to understand even what's happening to them? They don't, because we didn't have those problems. These kids are just being bad. They're not. They're sick. And right here at Western Psychiatric, and New York Times had a cover story for in the Sunday magazine 5 weeks ago, a big story on pediatric bipolar disease. And it so happens that Pittsburgh, which has historically been very big in the chemical side of psychiatry, is at the forefront of this study. And they have 250 such children here, 5 a week. And they don't want to believe that they are manic depressives. They want to start off, with this or this or this, and then they end up saying only lithium treats them. They don't know it's permanent, but the incidence of autism and of all these diseases is skyrocketing in our part of the world, as well as some others. And so the problem is, and I already know what some of the problem is. Now, how do we stop this? So it's very exciting to know that we know, as opposed to parents, friends of mine who have grandchildren and children who are autistic, etc., and they're just afflicted because they don't know what to do. They don't know what. So this is very exciting times. And you have to tell the bad story so you know how good the answers can be. And that they're really here to be grabbed. And I believe that, and that's why I can still get up and not get drunk and go to work. Because otherwise I would be very depressed. And instead I get angry and then I work. And or exasperated, I guess is a better story. So I will just end with a little quote that Jack said somewhere, I don't remember, A brighter future is within our grasp. Not because the road is level, not because the wind is at our backs, not because the sun is shining, but because our people have the spirit to overcome obstacles, to dream a better America, and to build it. And the world too. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Teresa. And thank you for that wonderful quote. Probably a quote that applies at any moment in time, but it seemed particularly apt at this moment in time. Thank you, Teresa, for your support, for your leadership, not only as it relates to Carnegie Mellon, but for our region and our nation. Thank you, Paul, for being a Pittsburgh hero and honoring us with your presence. No one represents better than you the straddling of the two sectors, if I can put it that way, and the crucial role of information systems in that. My congratulations to Krishnan for his leadership and to his predecessors, especially Mark Wessel, for his great leadership in getting us to this moment today. Beverly, you're a wonderful representative of the many alumni of the Heinz School, now the Heinz College. We're delighted you could be here today. And Conrhonda, thank you for representing our student body so well. There is a lot of reason for hope and excitement when you see our students and have a chance to interact with them. And David, thank you for representing our university so well in the Board of Trustees. And I want to acknowledge the many, many trustees who found the time to be here today for this special event. We really appreciate it. The Heinz College is being created really at a remarkable time. I think Teresa is right. Our problems are obviously daunting, but there's reason for hope, and it is our people, as Senator Heinz has said, and in particular the people of the Heinz College. We're very proud of you, and we wish you well. We'll be watching closely. We know you'll be very, very successful indeed. Congratulations. Historic events at Carnegie Mellon cannot be complete without bagpipes. And you're going to get your bagpipes. Indeed, not just bagpipes, but a bagpipe procession of everybody in this room, or all that are willing to join us, all the way down to Hamburg Hall. Now, bagpipe processions come with instructions, and that's my job. So we're going to lead the way. Let us go first. And then you're going to be asked to follow us row by row, starting in the front here. There will be able-bodied assistants to indicate how you should do that. And very importantly, on your way out, there will be staff ready to hand you a T-shirt, like the one that Teresa's grandchild received. And this is very important because one of the key events at Hamburg Hall is going to be a photo op. And these T-shirts are going to play an important role. So take your T-shirt, follow the person in front of you, don't trip. We'll see you in a little while. Congratulations. Thank you.